This nation was
founded by men of many nations and backgrounds.
It was founded on the principle.
That all men are created equal.
That all men are
created equal.
And that the rights of every man are diminished.
The rights of every man are diminished.
When the rights of one man are threatened.
As a former collegiate student athlete, the topic of medication is an ongoing debate. Also, as a secondary source of family members and those in the category of 6 degrees of separation who are prescribed to ingest and inject drugs and medications into their bodies on a consistent basis. This subject is personal. During these observations, I formed a distinct disgust for the majority of the prescribed medications on the market, continue and discontinue. Then, on the other hand, I have been in environments where over-the-counter drugs were abused. White powdered secret societies hiding in plain sight, using nonverbal cues for communication, and social gatherings drowned out by the floods of liquid courage, better known as alcohol. Regardless of the vice, overindulging is overindulging. Regardless of the horse you choose to saddle. This concern leads me to the following question: which is worse, licit or illicit? For this inquiry, I will use my normal format of definition first.
Sometimes when words are used over and over again, they can lose their meaning, or the depth of its meaning gets lost. For instance, some people might know that the phrase illicit drugs refer to drugs that are illegal or forbidden. However, many people don't realize that these drugs are not only illegal to use, but they are also illegal to sell and make. This article will review the differences between licit and illicit drugs, and why drugs have been classified as illegal. The meaning licit means within the law. In other words, anything that is licit is allowed or legal. Licit drugs include alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. It is legal to purchase and use these substances. Legal drug use include prescription drugs that are used according to the doctor's instructions, as well as by the person for whom it was prescribed. Legal drugs also include medicines used for illness and over-the-counter drugs when used as directed. However, illicit drugs are those that have been classified as illegal because they pose a threat to one's health and, in some cases, their life. As a result, these drugs might also be dangerous to society as well as the national and even global economy. Licit versus illicit drug use, 2018. Examples of illicit drugs include heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, LSD, ecstasy, mushrooms, and PCP. Using this foundation of sorts, which medication or prescriptions are classified as licit or illicit? Over the years, civilizations and societies have experimented with many forms of medical remedies to heal or treat disease and illness. For instances, ancient China, 7,000 to 6,000 BCE, used medicinal alcohol known as yaojin to promote blood warming and vitalizing. Too far back? If so, how about the Pharaonic Egypt, 3400 BCE, where beer and wine was popularly considered as a necessity of life? How about Greece, 5th and 4th century, when wine was viewed as a therapeutic agent for bad breath, cancer, wounds, and to loosen bowels? And this remedy continued Roman Empire, 2nd century, Middle Ages, 1000 to 1500 AD, and so on. Rourke, 2017. In addition, the United States was not excused from this treatment. Even during Prohibition, certain alcoholic beverages were prescribed for many ailments and diseases. However, due to a past resolution at the annual American Medical Association meeting in June 1917, it created a supportive push to initiate prohibition in the first place. But I digress. How is this relevant? Response: this is nothing new under the sun. So, when the debate concerning the legalization of marijuana really grew legs, I could not help but think, history always seems to repeat itself, just using an updated pair of gloves to hold the topic of discussion.
To highlight how history repeats itself, I will cite a quantitative source. As usual, definition first.
Medical marijuana has a higher CBD content, so when you're taking it, you don't feel the euphoria that's associated with this recreational counterpart. Note, Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has yet to prove or recognize the plant as a medicine, but future prophets, historically, have a way of swaying decisions. The end of alcohol prohibition is a perfect example. Recreational marijuana is pot that is used without medical justification. Recreational marijuana usually has more THC content than the medicinal variety, as this is what provides user with a high. The main differences between medical and recreational marijuana. There are various differences between the two different types of marijuana. These main differences include medical weed usually contains a higher CBD content than recreational. This means when you're taking it, you don't feel as high that's associated with the recreational variety, even though there's no actual difference between the concentrates and flowers of both types. Medical edible potency is frequently higher than its recreational counterpart. Recreational weed typically contains a higher THC content than medical. This means people usually take this variety more for a higher effect than the benefits. You need a recommendation for medical marijuana. Recreational marijuana can be bought by anyone. However, you need to have a qualifying condition to get a medical marijuana recommendation, and this must be renewed regularly. This is a key difference between medical and recreational marijuana. You don't need a recommendation for recreational marijuana. You can go into any recreational dispensary and buy what you need, if that's legal in your state, and you're over the required minimum age. No medical card is required to buy a recreational variety, which is another significant medical marijuana versus recreational contrast. You need to be over 18 to purchase medical marijuana from a dispensary. Although you must be 18 or over to buy medical marijuana for yourself, there are certain circumstances where people under 18 can apply for a medical marijuana card. These vary from state to state, so it's crucial to do your research if it applies to you. You need to be over 21 to purchase recreational marijuana from a dispensary. To buy recreational marijuana in states where it is legal, you must prove that you're over 21. If you live in a state where recreational pot is legal and you're over 21, you can easily obtain the drug by simply walking into a dispensary with your driver's license and buy it. In legal states, you can also possess pot or even grow it if you're over 21. You can buy medical marijuana from a regulated dispensary. Medical weed can be obtained from any medical pot dispensary. You can buy recreational pot from a dispensary if they're legal in your state. You can obtain recreational weed either from a dispensary or it can often be found alternately off the street. What is the difference between medical and recreational marijuana 2017? If you are an enthusiast of historical facts and information, this section is for you. Feel free to resort back to the history of medicinal alcohol to compare and contrast. Medical marijuana, the first mention of marijuana historically coming from a book written pharmacologist and an emperor of China. In 2737 BC, he wrote about how cannabis could be used to treat constipation, gout, malaria, and poor memory. Cannabis began spreading through South Asia between 1000 BC and 2000 BC. During this time, the drug was used in India and was described in an ancient poem of one of the herbs, which release us from anxiety. Nowadays, many doctors are prescribing medical marijuana for a variety of conditions. These include pain, nausea, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, mental health conditions, and more. As marijuana's medical benefits slowly become clear, people also started noticing the drug's euphoric effects. Recreational marijuana in 430 BCE, there are reports of a nomadic tribe using cannabis both spiritually and recreationally. The drug's psychoactive effects may be what led these people to inhale cannabis during funerals. The 12th century anthology, 1001 Nights, proves that the Arabs were aware of the drug's intoxicating and arousing effects. Hashish smoking became popular in the Middle East during this time. In 1843, the Hashish Club was founded. The group met monthly for drug-induced experiences, mostly with hashish. Americans were introduced to the idea of using cannabis recreationally after 1910. An influx of Spanish-speaking immigrants brought the drug to America. Shortly after, in 1937, cannabis was deemed as a crime under the Marijuana Tax Act. Today, recreational marijuana use is mainstream across North America. In 2017, poll found that 52% of Americans over 18 had tried cannabis. Moreover, 44% of those people still use the drug today. Medical marijuana versus recreational. What's the difference? 2019. The debate between medical versus recreational, or whether marijuana should be illegal or not, is rather futile and elementary. However, millions of nonviolent offenders serving time, or have served, for small quantities or amounts for personal use should be priority number one for legislation. What else can an average law-abiding citizen say when majority of Congress can decline a meeting dedicated to the first responders of 9/11? Borrowing from the profound lyrics of the legendary and influential Marvin Gaye, what is going on? So, who really benefits from this ongoing travesty? According to American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, statistics reveal a compelling story. Marijuana arrests account for 52% of drug arrests in the United States. During the span of time between 2001 and 2010, 8.2 million individuals were arrested, and 80% were arrested simply for having marijuana. In addition, the data undoubtedly projected the obvious racial bias attached. Blacks, or African Americans, are 3.73 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than white and European Americans. Marijuana arrests by numbers, no date. 1.5 incarcerated people is locked up for a drug offense. 451,000 are incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses on any given day. State prisons, 198,000. Local jails, 118,000 unconvicted, 35,000 convicted. Federal, 81,000. Bureau of Prisons, 16,000 U.S. Marshals. Youth, 2,500. Military, 90. There are over 1 million drug possession arrests each year. There are 6 times as many arrests for drug possession as for drug sales. Arrests in millions, 1980 through 2017. Also, based on the information provided by the ACLU, some states like New York have largely ended the war on drugs. excluding racial profiling and stop and frisk. And in other states, such as Oklahoma, full steam ahead. Sawyer and Wagner, 2019. Another fact, hard to overlook, data does not lie. However, in many cases, information can be swayed to cater the presenter. Admittedly, I do have a certain influence in terms of a conscientious conversation, fair treatment for all lives. As a respect to sharing perspectives of others, I recently read a well-versed column for the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, by Mr. Simon Smith.
Legal marijuana is an overwhelmingly white industry whose promises on racial equity have been left unfulfilled, Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, wrote in a piece for USA Today. She added, as case in point, people of color made up to 86% of marijuana arrests in New York in 2017. These figures stand in stark contrast to estimates suggesting that those who hold licenses today in this growing industry are roughly 99% white. You can see not dissimilar inequities play out among consumers, too. Here in Denver, Colorado, though recreational marijuana has been legal since 2012, it's not uncommon to see Black and Latinos and natives hide their joints and edibles while white folks openly puff and pass. The policy nexus of pot and people of color is now a popular Democratic talking point as we near 2020. Presidential candidates Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren and several of the other 9 POTUS hopefuls are calling for the legalization of marijuana and speak to the scourge of racism in policing when it comes to cannabis. The war on drugs has not been a war on drugs, it's been a war on people, and disproportionately people of color and low-income individuals, Booker said this week. And speaking on a radio show on Monday, Sanders said too many people have been unfairly ensnared by this country's pot policies. Too many lives are being destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people get criminal records. You know why? Because they have smoked marijuana, he said. That's insane. Insane, indeed, which is why it makes sense that, as Clark put it, those impacted should be given first-in-line access to licensing and job opportunities in this booming industry. One more suggestion, for every pot brownie or vegan cannabis cookie Whole Foods will inevitably sell, the mega company should vow to pay a portion of the legal fees to help free a person who is in a cage right now simply for having once had weed, the product they want to get in on. It's the right thing to do. Also, they should just lower their prices. Goodness knows they'll be the most expensive option around because, let's be honest here, they already are for everything else, Smith, 2019. Well, before that happens, before Amazon-owned Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and all manner of opulent, upscale grocers start selling pot brownies to their deep-pocketed patrons, every non-violent marijuana-related conviction should be expunged, and those still incarcerated for marijuana crimes should be immediately released. Before a single Wall Street-loving yacht owner makes another dollar off a demonized plant with long-known medicinal properties, every single person who was thrown into the criminal justice system for enjoying it should get their lives back as much as possible. It's the Black, brown, and Native American people who still suffer from arrests, despite decriminalization and even legalization, and arrest records tied to the possession of the very same product which this entitled gaggle of money grubbers are slated to make billions off of over the next 10 to 20 years. And any kind of conviction in this land of backward laws can make it nearly impossible for a person to land a job, get an apartment, handle money, volunteer, vote, or work in the legalized marijuana industry. In the meantime, rich white people are raking it in. Even universities are getting in on the action. Northern Michigan University, for example, offers a 4-year degree in marijuana. We're providing a fast track to get into the industry, Brandon Canfield, a chemistry professor at the school, said. But for whom? Usually not those doing time for possession of marijuana. Here's an idea, though: offer free tuition at Northern Michigan University, and all universities with marijuana majors and minors, for those who have been savagely ripped from their families and friends and had their lives damaged by the criminal justice system simply because they were Black, brown or Native and had pot on their person. It can only help, given how white the entire industry is shaping up to be. For years, the rich, white and powerful have demonized marijuana and those who smoke it, eat it or dribble CBD oil in their tea. They labeled it a gateway drug, limited research into its medicinal uses, designed and implemented policies that overcriminalized its possession. 88% of marijuana arrests between 2001 and 2010 were for possession, and marijuana represented 46% of all drug arrests in the United States, and disproportionately targeted black and brown people for arrest. Ronald Reagan fear-mongered in 1980 that marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States. Now former Attorney General Jeff Sessions said as recently as 2016 that good people don't smoke marijuana. But these days, the rich white elite are planning to wildly capitalize on the psychoactive plant. And I'm not just talking about former Republican House Speaker John Boehner, who declared himself unalterably opposed to legalization in 2011 only to join the board of a marijuana company in 2018. If cannabis is ever passed in Texas, chances are good that grocery stores will be selling that too, Whole Foods CEO, John Mackey said during a conversation hosted by the Texas Tribune recently.
Well written, Mr. Simon Smith. And to whom it may concern, expunge before you plunge into the deep profits of legalization. Recently, I viewed a film based on a true story titled Kill the Messenger, sharing the brave stand of a journalist named Gary Webb.
To not spoil the movie for others, I will only relay the plot. Journalist Webb uncovers how the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, flooded crack cocaine into black and African American sections of Los Angeles to neutralize the community and help generate funds for the Contras and Nicaraguan freedom fighters, as an endorsement to the purchasing of weapons. After watching the picture, reading the book Dark Alliance by Gary Webb, and researching dozens of affairs surrounding the CIA, example COINTELPRO, and other factions, it is only natural to question what is behind the medication. The blooming of profits of pharmaceutical companies, ridiculous financial gains from the cheap labor of inmates to overpacked prisons and jails, to the double dippers who benefit from marijuana possession arrests and the legalization of cannabis, whether medical or recreational.